Thus, he was always unseen by his various.
Thus, when he was in the land of Bharatavarsha, traveling to all the places of pilgrimage, he visited Prabhasa Kshetra. At that time, Maharaj Yudhishthira was the emperor and held the world under one military strength and one flag.
Do you know what is Bharatavarsha? India? Okay, why is it called Bharatavarsha? Do you know? Yes, way back, right? Before the Pandavas. So there was a great king, King Bharata. So that's why it's called Bharatavarsha. Text 21. So
at the place of pilgrimage at Bharadvaja, it came to his knowledge that all his relatives had died due to violent passion, just as an entire forest burns due to fire produced by the friction of men. After this, proceeded west, where the river Saraswati.
On the bank of the river Saraswati, there were 11 places of pilgrimage, namely 1 Trita, 2 Usana, Manu, Prithu, Agni, Asita, Vayu, Sudasa, Go, Guha, and Svadeva. Vijaya visited all of them and duly performed rituals.
There were also
There were also many other temples of various forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, established by the great sages and demigods. These temples were marked with the chief emblems of the Lord, and they were reminded one always of the original personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna.
Thereafter, he passed through very wealthy provinces like Surat, Sorvira, and Matsya, and through western India known as Kurujangala. At last he reached the bank of the Yamuna, where he happened to meet Uddhava, the great devotee of Lord Krishna.
Then, due to his great love and feeling, Vidura embraced him. Uddhava, who was a constant companion of Lord Krishna and formerly a great student of Brihaspati's, Vidura then asked him for news of the family of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead.
okay, thank you. So I want to mention a line from the purport of the previous verse. Prabhupada says about the holy places. He says, there's still many devotees of the Lord lingering there in the holy places, in ecstasy, in search of Krishna and his childhood associates, the gopis. It's not that such devotees meet Krishna face to face in that tract of land, but a devotee's eagerly searching after Krishna is as good as seeing him personally. So it's longing for him, looking for him, is what that, so I thought that was very poetic, very beautiful. So let's go back to text 17. Sanirgata Kodava Punya Labdo Gaja Vayatirtha Padapadani Anvakramat Punya Chikir Shayorvyam Adishtito Yani Sahasramurti Sanirgata Kodava Punya Labdho Gaja Vayatirtha Padapadani Anvakramat Punya Chikir Shayorvyam Adishtito Yani Sahasramurti So we'll actually do, I don't know if someone can push it down. Scroll down a little, we can do the word for word together. Or I could read them. Does anybody know how to work it? If not, someone can sing in the meantime. But okay, so maybe Krishna wants us to sing this verse together. Okay, somebody like to sing it? Sanirgata Gaura Bhakti Gajabayati Tapada Padani Anvakramat Punya Chakir Shadovyam Adishitavyam. One more devotee can sing, chant. Okay, let's go to the translation, read this together. By his piety, together we'll read. By his piety, Vidura achieved the advantages of the pious Kauravas. After leaving Hastinapura, he took shelter of many places of pilgrimages, which are the Lord's lotus feet. With the desire to gain a high order of pious life, he traveled to holy places where thousands of transcendental forms of the Lord are situated. Purport. Vidura was undoubtedly a highly elevated and pious soul. Otherwise, he would not have taken his birth in the Kaurava family. To have high parentage, to possess wealth, to be highly learned, and to have great personal beauty are all due to past pious acts. But such pious possessions are not sufficient for obtaining the grace of the Lord and being engaged in his transcendental loving service. Vidura considered himself less pious, and therefore he decided to travel to all the great places of pilgrimage in the world in order to achieve greater piety and advance nearer to the Lord. At that time, Lord Krishna was personally present in the world, and Vidura could have at once approached him directly, but he did not do so because he was not sufficiently freed from sin. One cannot be 100% devoted to the Lord unless and until he is completely free from all effects of sin. Vidura was conscious that by the association of the diplomatic Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, he had lost his piety and was therefore not fit to associate at once with the Lord. Okay, if you could scroll down, as a long purpose, we're going to go down to the next beginning of the next paragraph. Yeah. So places of pilgrimages are meant for eradicating the sins of the pilgrims, and they are distributed all over the universe just to give facility to all concerned for attaining pure existence and God realization. One should not be satisfied, however, merely by visiting the places of pilgrimage and performing one's prescribed duties. He should be eager to meet the great souls who are already there, engaged in the service of the Lord. In each and every place of pilgrimage, the Lord is present in his various transcendental forms. These forms are called archamurtis, or forms of the Lord which can be easily appreciated by the common man. The Lord is transcendental to our mundane senses. He cannot be seen with our present eyes, nor can he be heard with our present ears. To the degree that we have entered into the service of the Lord, or to the proportion to which our lives are freed from sins, we can perceive the Lord. But even though we are not free from sins, the Lord is kind enough to allow us the facility of seeing him in his archamurtis in the temple. The Lord is all powerful, and therefore he is able to accept our service by presentation of his archa form. No one, therefore, should foolishly think the archa in the temple to be an idol. Such an archamurti is not an idol, but the Lord himself, and to the proportion to which one is free from sins, he is able to know the significance of the archamurti. The guidance of a pure devotee is therefore always required. So we will complete the purport there. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshur Unaditam Yena Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha. So Vidura here is taking a what do they call it? The Pilgrim's Progress, right? So that book that I told you about, which was a Christian book, was I actually read it when I was there was a book in my Gurukul. We had that book, and I read it as I was a kid, and it had really intense illustrations because it's an intense story about this soul pilgrim who is like moving, trying to reach heaven, basically, right? Moving on the journey. He comes across all these obstacles. So in the same way, Vidura, not in the same way, obviously at an even more advanced level, but Vidura is also beginning on this journey, looking for what were the reasons why Vidura was doing this. Can you remember some things that we read? What were his purposes in doing it? A pilgrimage. Yes.
A gambling match, and lost, and he had like his different brother got the ear of the blind king.
Well, that's like some other. That's a different context, or different person, or kind of different stories that are coming together. But what is the purpose from right now today? Why is he stepping out the door? Why is he going on pilgrimage as opposed? I should rephrase the question. Why is he going on pilgrimage as opposed to just going on a long walk? What is it about the pilgrimage aspect? Yes.
On the purport, it said to, like, pilgrimages to remove sins, so he probably wanted to remove the sins.
Yes. So one thing was to purify his heart, right? He wanted to, and it mentioned in the purport that he wanted to purify that consciousness that he had collected by being in bad company, right? To go on something purifying, some journey. Yes.
Yeah, he wanted to purify, and also he wanted to gain the piety to come closer to the Lord.
Yes, so gain the piety to come closer to the Lord. And there was another thing mentioned in, let's see. Oh, yes, go on.
Halted, and he took it as a good opportunity to leave.
Yes. Yes, so he took it as a good opportunity to leave, to move on. And there was another thing mentioned. What was his mood while he was traveling? What was, besides just wanting to purify himself and reach, yeah. Go. Like cleanse. So that was one thing we mentioned that, but there was something else beyond that too. So it says, like a few verses later, it said he wanted to please the Supreme Lord Hari. So that's even a deeper reason, right? So there's different layers, different levels of pilgrimage, of attitude, of consciousness. So ultimately he was doing it to satisfy the Lord. Okay, so let's look at what is not a pilgrimage, and then what is a pilgrimage. And then I'm going to talk about why do we go so far? Like, why do we take a long plane ride to go to a holy place? And then how could we maybe do it right here in Gainesville? What would that look like, taking a pilgrimage right here? So the first thing is, what is it not? Okay, so tell me what is not the purpose of sacred pilgrimage? So the purpose, so you know how we're talking about the theme is the purpose of sacred pilgrimage. So what is it not?
A vacation.
A vacation, good point. Yes, it's not a vacation. Yep. Talk.
It's not for fame or gain. Like if you were doing it for popularity, or oh, I'm so humble and I'm going on this pilgrimage and now I'm going to be so sinless.
That's a really good point. Yeah. I had that on my list as well, like for ego, right? For ego boosting. So if I can say to my friends when I come back, I've been to 500 different holy places now and I keep my list, and it's kind of like a show off, so it's not for that purpose. Yes.
It's not doing for food reviews or doing like lotteries or like things like that.
Lotteries? Yeah.
Like stuff like things that are like really materialistic.
Right. So not for things that are really materialistic. Good point. Yeah. Any other thoughts? What's not the purpose of a pilgrimage? Okay, now for sightseeing and TikTok videos. Yeah, so not just to gather, it's not for sense gratification, basically, right? And these things can kind of be sources of sense gratification. Like, wow, I saw the Taj Mahal, right? We heard about the Taj Mahal yesterday. Or whatever place, and then we want to show it off on our Instagram feed, right? So it's different than that. The mood is very different. So another thing is it's not mechanical, ritualistic process, because oftentimes this is the tricky, more subtle one, because we hear how it purifies the heart and it can be the source of atonement, right? So we can think, well, I'm going to go there and check off that, like kind of a ritualistic act. I'm going to go there and just get my whatever baggage I have kind of relieved, and then I'm going to go back to life. So kind of in that mood. That's actually not the purpose of a holy place either, even though it does purify the heart, but it's not the ultimate purpose. Any other thoughts? Okay. So what is it? What is a pilgrimage? So yes, Maybe we can share some ideas. Like what is the purpose of a pilgrimage?
The main thing it sounded like Srila Prabhupada was saying is we should be eager to meet the great souls who are already there, engaged in devotional service.
Yes, so that's the biggest thing. The holy places, it's described in Srimad Bhagavatam that they accumulate we hear this word sins a lot, right? It's a word that sometimes we kind of just glaze over, like sins. Okay, it doesn't really, seems like kind of an intense word. You can think of it as like the negative stuff that's been bagging, like holding us back, right? The nartas, the baggage, right? Whatever word you want to use, the turbulence that's covering us, the impure thoughts, the negative consciousness, all of that gets accumulated every time someone goes to the holy places and goes, okay, I'm going to relieve all my stuff here, right? It's kind of like, I'm going to dump all my, I want to purify my heart. So they're kind of all of that ends up in the holy places. And the Srimad Bhagavatam describes that the devotees that you said, the saintly persons there that travel there and that live there, they're the ones who actually neutralize all of that negative stuff that is accumulated from all the people leaving their sins, right? So that's actually the saints of the holy places are the most important part of the holy places. Yeah, so that Prabhupada had used that phrase in a purport that sinful reactions left by the sinful people are neutralized by the devotees. Isn't that interesting? So, okay, yeah, so that's a big part, to associate with saints. What else? What is the purpose of a pilgrimage? And some of you have just come back recently, so, and you can share, what was your purpose of the pilgrimage? What was the thing that you got from it? Yes, Nishta. I can repeat it if you like, unless you... Okay, so internal reflections and realizations about your own sadhana. Yes, that's really important. The inner journey to get realizations. Yeah.
Better connection.
A better connection to, or with what?
God.
Okay, so a better connection with God. That's really nicely put. To strengthen our signal, right? You know how we have like nowadays, like the connection, I really think a Wi-Fi connection, right? So we want to strengthen our connection with God, so we go to a holy place. What other purpose? Yes.
Actually discover yourself and like understand more about like Krishna consciousness and like understand like different aspects of NC, like what you want to like do, and like find the things that you enjoy in it and then stick to that.
Yeah, so self-discovery, finding ways to serve, finding ways to connect. So these are all really wonderful. I want to share with you when I went on a recent pilgrimage to, I don't know if I used that word when I was planning the trip. I went on a recent journey to, not that recent now, a few months ago, I went to Rotterdam in Belgium. And I went for a holy name retreat with Satchidananda Maharaj. And when I spoke with him, he said to me, you took a pilgrimage. And he used that word. He said, this was a pilgrimage. You were planning, you were coming with that purpose of wanting to come closer to Krishna. And he said, so often, and these words I think I will remember till the day I die. He said, so often we follow the whims of the body and the mind, but rarely do we follow the compass of the soul. Rarely do we follow the compass of the soul. And when he said that, the compass of the soul, it was so profound. It was it was like validation from Krishna because through the devotee, sometimes the pure devotees speak and you feel like Krishna's seeing you through that, right? Their encouragement. And I felt that, yes, that's kind of how I had gone, because this whole trip just sort of came up, but it was more of I was following that desire of my soul, because I was going through other things with my health and this and that, and it was hard. It wasn't an easy trip, but I was like, I really want to do this. And it was a higher calling, right? And so I'm sure many of you have experienced that as well, where you do some trip, you do some service because you're feeling that higher calling, the compass of the soul, right? Following that. So one of the purposes of pilgrimage is to follow that, because very often we're following the mind and the body. So another purpose is, in addition to atoning from our transgressions, is to associate with saints, like you said, the big one. Another one is to remember Krishna. So when we're going on pilgrimage, the whole purpose is to remember Krishna. And Vidura was also doing that. He was remembering Krishna. And there's a beautiful description also in the Bhagavatam that the devotee, is like a walking place of pilgrimage because they're constantly remembering Krishna. That is the purpose of pilgrimage, to remember Krishna. And therefore, because the devotees are constantly remembering Krishna, they're like walking places of pilgrimage. They're like moving holy places around us. So that's a pretty beautiful illustration, or like analogy. And then another reason or another purpose of pilgrimage is to satisfy the Lord, satisfy Krishna. Why would it satisfy Krishna for us to go on pilgrimage? Yes.
Because we're working on a relationship with him.
Okay, yeah. We're working on a relationship with Krishna, yes?
Because he sees that we're putting in effort to get closer to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's also a component of austerity in pilgrimage. So who here has experienced austerity when they're on pilgrimage? Okay, so yeah, pretty much the same people who said they went on pilgrimage also raise their hand, right? Because it's austere, and the whole purpose is to sacrifice some of this tendency to want to enjoy. Like, let me do something for Krishna. So let me show him. You know how we get moved when we see that someone's done some effort for us? They've gone out of their way to find us a gift that we always wanted. They went to the store 3 hours away to buy it for us, that we feel moved, right? So Krishna also is a supreme person, but he has that quality of feeling moved by the efforts that we take. So that's very nicely put. Yes. Yeah.
On pilgrimage, we leave aside the mundane patterns of living and concentrate on spiritual advancement exclusively.
Very nice. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, so satisfying the Lord. And did you have a comment as well? Yeah, go ahead.
The saying, like, God helps those who help themselves.
Right, yeah. So we have to show up, right, to get the mercy. And sometimes that means taking a really long trip. Very often, pilgrimages, for most of us here living in the West, when we think about going to the Holy Dham, it's quite a physically and I'll say physically and mentally sometimes even, it can be very grueling, right, to go so far. We're not living nearby, so we have to take that long plane rides and then jet lag and all of that. So I forget, what did you just say?
I was saying that
Yeah, so when we're doing effort, right, again, so the idea that we're doing that extra effort and we're doing that austerity. So Krishna's pleased. So the main thing about pilgrimage is, it's not even so much where we go and how many times we walked around a certain area or how many times we paid obeisances. Those are important, those numerical things. But the real important thing is the quality of our consciousness, our intention when we go somewhere or when we do something. So the intention is the most important thing. And here you can see Vidura is so sincere, right? So such a beautiful intention of wanting to please the Lord, wanting to purify himself so that he can enter the presence of the Lord. And some of the qualities that are especially important for traveling with pilgrimage, spiritual traveling, is humility. Humility is especially important. Feeling that I need this, I need mercy, I need help, I can't do this alone, I need the guidance of great devotees, I need Krishna's help. And in that mood, we can really take the shelter of the holy Dham and the holy places. And then also with a mood of service, right? So we don't want to be going there to enjoy. We don't want to be like videos or whatever. We don't want to be in that mood of like, I mean, we can take videos if we're sharing with our friends or like for the purpose of something higher. So it's not like videos on themselves are bad, but the consciousness in which we're doing it. We don't want to be a tourist, basically. We want to be a humble, we want to show up in a humble mood as a seeker, not a tourist. And then what's the result of a pilgrimage is that there's some transformation that happens in the heart. So who here has experienced transformation from something, some pilgrimage, some long journey, some connection with a spiritual place? Raise your hand. Okay, I'm sure more of you have. Yeah, okay. So I'm sure you all have, right, at different times. Because there's no way you can't. When you go on a long pilgrimage for Krishna or a long spiritual journey, there's no way you can't experience transformation if you're in the right consciousness. So why do we need to go so far? Why do we need to go all the way and long trip to the holy places of Krishna? So first of all, there's like I said, there's varying degrees of approaching pilgrimage, of consciousness and of an intent. Sometimes we just want to travel. We want to pick up and go somewhere to shift our stuckness, right? You ever feel stagnant and you're like, I need to travel. I need to go somewhere and just shake up how I'm thinking about things. New perspective. Or I need to let go of some attachment I had there. So I'm going to move over there to like release that old attachment. So there's something about movement, about changing. That's just on a kind of more mundane level. People do travel for that same reason, right? I'm going to go travel to Egypt so that I can get a new perspective on my life. So that's important. It's not the ultimate important, but it's there as an important factor. But the holy places of Krishna are especially important because they are described by Lord Chaitanya and Sanatana Goswami that they are one of the 5 main key aspects of devotional service, that we want to live or reside and or at least visit a holy place of Krishna, a place where Krishna had his pastimes. So Prabhupada, for that reason, he actually established the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, right? And Mayapur and so on, all the temples that he wanted devotees of ISKCON to come there and to purify their hearts and to also deepen their love for Krishna, to really fall in love with Krishna. Prabhupada actually said, I found this phrase, he said, to give impetus for going back to Godhead, to give us impetus. The other thing about going somewhere very far, like for those of you who've been to Vrindavan or Mayapur or Jagannath Puri, and going to these holy places of Krishna, of his pastimes, Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, is that it's a rapid advancement. Like we might be like, okay, I'm going, my spiritual life's like this. But then when we go there, it's like peaking up. If you think of a graph, a rapid opportunity, at least the opportunity. We might not take it fully, but there's an opportunity for rapid transformation. So I have this clog, I guess you call it a clog, in my bathroom. The bathtub the drain was recently clogged up, right? And I was like trying to use these different products to unclog it, declog it, I don't know the word, to help it move out whatever was stuck in the pipe. And I was thinking as I was doing that, I was like, this is, you pour this, I had this like eco-friendly, whatever, powder you pour in and you put hot water, and then it just breaks up that stuff that's blocking the pipe. And so this is it's so rapid. It's like, okay, pour this powder in and then suddenly the pipe's clear. And similarly, when we take on that effort of going to a holy place of pilgrimage, we do that, we walk, we travel, we do that. It's like a very quick and efficient way to declog our consciousness, like to really just let it just immediately release all that stagnant stuff that's in the consciousness, just like a pipe. And finally, I read another thing in one of Satchidananda Maharaj's books. He said that when we go to a holy place, it's like going to an embassy, where you know how you go to an embassy, you get your visa for a place. So he said it's like going to an embassy, going to a holy place and getting your embassy going to an embassy to get your visa for the spiritual world. So going to an embassy to get your visa for the spiritual world. So when you show up, I'm going to show up here and I'm going to get basically entryway into the spiritual world ultimately. So that's all really wonderful for those of us who can make it over there and who can do it. And we should all attempt to do that in this lifetime, at least once, if not more. But what happens if we're not able to go? We're stuck here in Gainesville and there isn't an opportunity to go on a pilgrimage. What can we do? So let's look at that. So Prabhupada, he actually created places. He put new in front of it. Have you noticed that there's temples, right? New Vrindavan, new, what are some other names? New Goloka, I grew up there. New Taliban. New Jagannath Puri. Where is that one? Oh yeah. San Francisco, okay. New Dwarkadam. Yeah. New Ramanreti, yes, great. Yeah, we have Krishna House. There's not a new in front of it, but it's same thing, right? So new Krishna House. But yeah, so Prabhupada, the reason for him putting the word new in front is just like he wanted to emphasize to the devotees that these are places of pilgrimage, these are places of holy places also. And they become holy places depending on the consciousness, the collective consciousness that we have. The consciousness that we bring to the place as residents, as visitors, is what turns that place into a holy place. Our collective consciousness and our collective efforts to serve. That's what makes a place a holy place. So really, Achintya Beta Beta Tattva, we hear this term a lot, right? Simultaneously one and different. Yes, we want to go to Vrindavan, Mayapur, Jagannath Puri, and we need to go there to the holy places where Krishna performed his pastimes. At the same time, there's both and, right? At the same time, if we're not able to, we have these holy places right here that we can go to. So sometimes we can take a pilgrimage just going to the places in America, for instance, or locally here, New Ramanreti, like that. Or we can go Florida, or we can go different temples, different holy places in America. 22nd Avenue is a really special holy place, which is where Prabhupada started the movement. And another way to do a pilgrimage right now today is we heard that one of the most important things of pilgrimage was associating with devotees and serving them. So that's something we can do right now today, because that helps us in our consciousness. And another way is we have a little bag of dust, and I'll pass it around. So Kiara gave me this. This is from Govardhan. And this is another way to travel on pilgrimage right now, today in Gainesville. We just take a little dust from the hill of Govardhan, and we're transported there with our mind and consciousness in our body. So I'll pass that around. You can take a little dust on your head. And then another one is going on an internal journey. And I forget who said the internal journey. Somebody had said that earlier. Maybe it was Amrita. Was it Nishta? Yeah, Nishta. Yeah, different people said something, touched on this idea that it's really about the internal travel. So we might be here in Gainesville, right? We might be students, we might be whatever we're doing, working, studying. We can't pick up and go on a trip somewhere. So what we can do is we can go internally on a trip. What I love to do when I'm chanting is I love to imagine a holy place because I've been there, and we have these deep impressions that happen when we've been there, right? So you can collect these impressions from your trip, and you can imagine, okay, what's your favorite? Let's see, what's somebody who's been to a holy place, what's one of your favorite places to meditate on, like to remember in your mind? Govardhan, okay, so like sitting near Govardhan. So that's one place I love to do that too. I like to picture. So before chanting, you can kind of get into consciousness. Okay, I'm going to imagine myself chanting there at that hill. And you don't have to have been there. You can also do it just by consciousness, right? You can imagine being there. But Govardhan. What else? Radhe Shyamala Vrindavan, yeah, really sweet. So you can chant in front of them in your mind. You can pray to them. Yeah, samadhi places are really powerful. The amazing thing is that you can be directly connected to the devotees whose samadhi is there, right? You felt that. I'm sure that you can feel the presence of that soul, that spiritual, teacher, spiritual teacher, guru, acharya, and in that way you can pray to them while you're chanting for help. I loved on that too. It's the amazing power of spiritual life is you don't have to be physically somewhere. You can do it here right now. You can pray to, like, I love Sanatana Goswami Samadhi, for example. So many beautiful places. And it doesn't have to be a holy place in that part of the world. It can be a holy place where maybe you really love, like 26 Second Avenue, or one of the temples here as well. One of the deities that you love here in the US. So yeah, so I'll end there and I'll just briefly share what we talked about. So we talked about what it's not, what a purpose of pilgrimage is not. It's not just a long journey just for like ego purposes and showing off, and it's not mechanical. What it is, it's following this compass of the soul. It's longing for Krishna. It's looking to serve the devotees, right? Associate with devotees. And it's all about the mood that we have. Why we go so far? Do you remember? Why do we go so far to these holy places of Krishna? We go there because Prabhupada said they give us impetus for going back to God. They are the places of Krishna, and he established temples there to remind us of Krishna. And they help us clean our consciousness just the way that we would pour some stuff down our drain and clean out the clog of our drain, right? And then finally, we can take pilgrimage right here in Gainesville by going within and having an internal journey. I think you guys didn't get it, right? Yeah, so they're missing the Govardhan dust. And then we can take dust on our head and we can remember our past trips and we can be there in our mind. Okay, so those are the main things. And I'd like to know if there's any questions or comments. Yes.
So how can we clarify between the whims of the mind and body and the compass of the soul? Because sometimes we may think like, oh, this would be really good for my spiritual life. Like I should go do something, but it might not. It might be like a little bit like an over endeavor. Whereas like you could maybe just serve in a different way in another place that might be, I guess, convenient. So can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a really intelligent question. And I think it comes down to having checks and balances system. So we never want to just do something impulsively and completely depend on our own way of thinking, our own mind. Like, okay, I'm sure that's the compass of my soul that I'm following, and I'm just going to do that. Because we know that we have flaws, right? We know that we're conditioned and we might be not seeing something with clarity. So we need to have also the guidance of devotees in our life. So it's both and again. It's this and this. So it's yes, feeling that calling, feeling a calling to go and serve in a way, or I'm feeling a calling to go on this pilgrimage. Now, instead of just like up and leaving, right? Like, which might shock a lot of people if you just like follow all the time, follow the whims. You want to also check in with your mentors, with your devotee friends, and so on. Just see what they think. And also it helps to do pros and cons lists. I don't know if any of you do that, but it helps me to do that, write pros and cons and see like, hey, is the motivation here really spiritual, first of all? And is it also really practical? Is it going to be helpful in the long run? Things like that. Any other questions or comments? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love that phrase, changing from the inside out. That's really powerful. It's very different from ordinary travel in that way. Yeah. Changing from the inside out. Beautiful. Yes. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask if going to like nature could be considered a pilgrimage if you have the intent or something to like
get closer, find yourself.
Yeah, going into nature, is that what you said? Yeah, absolutely. Like the great sadhus would sometimes just walk through the forests, right? Oftentimes their forest became their home in the past days when that was practical. But yeah, very often I find nature very helpful for uplifting my consciousness and also connecting with Krishna, remembering that I'm a tiny little jiva in this bigger, kind of perspective also. So yeah, that can definitely be. So again, it's the consciousness, right? Am I going into nature to just like enjoy it? Like, wow, I'm just feeling good about myself, or am I going in to appreciate, be grateful, and whatever, the consciousness again, to connect, like you said before, to connect. Yeah.
I feel like all the points that we talked about, like above, they all like resonate with Krishna House, and I personally came to Krishna House as a form of pilgrimage, I guess you could say. So can you elaborate a little? Well, back at home, I wasn't really doing much, and like my consciousness was kind of just, I guess, numbed down or something. And I felt like Krishna House was like the perfect place to get association of like devotees and serve the devotees, because that's a big thing in Krishna House. Have like the morning sadhana going and like everything properly there, and
Yeah.
just so much put in place and so much purity around everywhere.
Right. So you took a pilgrimage to here, and this is the destination spot, which pilgrimage is really the journey towards a holy place, and this is exactly what you did. So I hope that when I asked the question, who has been on pilgrimage, you would all feel like, yes, I've been on pilgrimage, because even if you haven't been to a holy place in Vrindavan or Mayapur or India, you've been here. So you've all taken a pilgrimage here. Right. So yeah, we'll do one more, and then we'll have breakfast. Okay.
Pilgrimage necessarily mean like it doesn't have to be out of city, out of state, out of country?
It does not. It can be, you can be in your room, you can be sick. Maybe sometimes we're unwell and we can't move out of our bed. We can go on a pilgrimage even in that condition, because again, it's a pilgrimage of our consciousness, like we were saying, we can visualize being at a holy place, or we can pray to a personality, or pray to Radhesham Vrindavan, or go to a samadhi place. We can do service in our mind as well, which is also a pilgrimage, serve the devotees in our mind. There was a great devotee, Bhakti Charaswami. Some of you may have met him or know of him. He passed away a few years ago. He said that, it's very sweet. He said when he was feeling sick, different times in his life when he would get sick, he said sometimes those were the sweetest times, because he could do more service in his mind than he was able to do with just the body, or like in external way, like producing service in the world. He said, but when you're sick, laying in bed, you can actually do so much for Krishna. There's no limit to what you can do in your mind.
Oh, so you don't wait, like however you do that, like pilgrimage would be like read the book or like anything like that, or just from the mind only?
So hearing about the holy places, reading about them, hearing about them from others. It's very important to read and hear, and then we understand what those holy places and holy people are, and then in that consciousness we can. It's not just speculation, like visualizing. It's different from just like our own mental speculation. It's like coming from a place of hearing and scripture, right, based in scripture. And there's so much in Krishna books, especially about the glories of Vrindavan, for example. So if we haven't physically been there, we can read about it, and then in that way we can be in that consciousness. I'll add one last thing. When I was in Vrindavan, I at one point I remember I was driving on a rickshaw, and I might have shared this here before, but it was so profound. I was driving on a rickshaw. It's a way bizarre, right? Like one of the, and I was going. I don't remember what I was doing. It doesn't really matter. I was either shopping or going to the holy places, but there was something where I was driving and there was some dust that was blowing up, because there's a lot of fine sand there, and it was going into my eyes. And I remember I closed my eyes, and when I closed my eyes, all of a sudden, all the distraction, because there's lots of distraction there, right? Pigs and things honking and whatever, it's just like really chaotic. So I closed my eyes, and suddenly I was able to go internal, and I had this profound realization in that moment that it's not about seeing with my physical eyes. That's not what allows me entrance into the holy Dham. It's seeing through the ears, hearing from the devotees, reading, right? So that's okay. We'll have to end here, but we can talk more after. But yeah, so thank you so much for participating. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi.
Mahaprasad Worship versus faith Mahaprasad. Devi Shiva Godhead.